Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of On the Bus Podcast. Your bus driver here, ready to take you out for spins, dips, whirls, twirls. Yeah, I can't think of any other directions, but that's what we're ready to do. Now, quick little update, quick little tidbits. What's going on with the bus? What's going on with our second season as we're heading to South America? Currently, we are in Austin, Texas at the moment. The bus is here. The bus is ready. It's getting ready to be shipped from Houston to Cartagena. Should be getting shipped and sailed next week to Cartagena, where the bus will begin its voyage, will begin its trip. It's, I don't know what you call it, but it's going to be going around South America from Cartagena. So stay tuned, stay posted. Best way to follow that is through our social media pages on the Bus Podcast. That's going to get the tagline for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and then you get onthebuspodcast@gmail.com to connect with us there. And make sure you stay tuned with the show. Always hitting that subscribe button, even writing a review. Because trust me, after this episode, this is an episode. Great episode. You're going to love this episode. Now, before we get into today's episode, let me go over a quick little commercials with you real quick. First one, bam, Green Roads World. Traveling on the road, it's a burden. It's a grind. It is grueling. As much as we have both been able to stay fit, we've been able to exercise, been able to eat well, you can't fight inflammation. Inflammation is the body's natural reaction to any injury or any scar, any cut. Normally you think of inflammation as, the reddening of your skin, maybe after you get a cut. Now, inflammation is the body's natural reaction, like I mentioned before. So maybe you get a little wear and tear, you pull a muscle, your body is going to inflame around the area that is injured. Now, if you don't take care of that initial inflammation, that inflammation on that one point is going to inflame other parts of the body, and that is where you can get in trouble. Now, it's really hard to take care of those things internally. Even sometimes you may miss inflammation on the exterior of your body. One thing that Daniel and I love to take, one thing that's helped us drastically is Green Roads World's CBD oil, the largest manufacturer in Florida of CBD oil. This is pharmaceutical grade CBD oil. Now imagine if you have to take just a few drops of a little liquid before you go to bed. Bam, you're worrying no more, no less. This stuff is going to take care of that inflammation. Wherever the inflammation may be, the CBD is going to latch on the cannabinoid receptors that are found in your DNA that are going to help with the inflammation healing. Now, you're going to head over to greenroadsworld.com, and after you make a CBD purchase, whether that's going to be some gummy bears, some tea, coffee, topical creams to help with any of the inflammation, pain, or soreness, you're going to get yourself a 15% discount when you use promo code ONTHEBUS. That's lowercase, all one word. Don't say thank you to everybody who shopped and used that link or used that promo code. You should be thanking Green Roads World, not just providing that promo code, but providing that amazing, beneficial, pharmaceutical-grade treatment for any and all of your inflammation. Now, real quick, we're going to go over one more. Amazon.com and that beautiful bad boy Amazon portal over at onthebuspodcast.com. Folks, it's that simple. It's that easy. The future, we're not getting to it. It's here. It's now. It's beautiful. It's incredible. Best thing is, you don't have to go out and shop. The technology's there to make our lives easier. We don't have to do and grind and make our lives more optimal just to go do more work. All right? Let's have more time to go do what we want, to splash around in beautiful, majestic pools out in Texas. Or you want to go dive off buildings with parachutes that have like squirrel suits on them? That's also possible too. You can go do it. You don't have to worry about going and shopping and worrying about what kind of toothpaste you're going to get. You should know what kind of toothpaste you're going to get, and you can do it with one-click shopping while you're on the way to those beautiful outdoor water springs or even to that bridge you're about to jump off with your squirrel suit. Best place to do that, though, is at onthebuspodcast.com. It's the same old-fashioned exact Amazon that you normally shop through, but it is at onthebuspodcast.com. It is going to help support this podcast, this show. So, again, head over to onthebuspodcast.com, shop on our Amazon link, favorite the thing. That way, you don't have to go back to our site. The tag link's there. It's with you. And once again, you're saving the day. You are on the bus. Our guest today, Taylor Monahan. Taylor Monahan is the co-founder of MyEtherWallet, a free open source client-side wallet that lets you easily and securely interact with the Ethereum network. Ethereum is a cryptocurrency which includes a programmable smart contract platform, and MyEtherWallet gives you the ability to generate new wallets so you can store your Ethereum yourself, not on an exchange. There's a lot of buzz and even more speculation about cryptocurrency out there. So Daniel and I geared this show specifically to help break down the basics around cryptocurrency. Think of this as a crypto 101. In the first half, Taylor walks us through the essentials behind cryptocurrency, Ethereum, blockchains, wallets, and what comes along with it. The second half was open format discussing the utility of cryptocurrency, the explosion of trading, market potential, ICOs, and more. And Taylor's husband, the CEO of MyEtherWallet, Kevin Monahan, also jumps in to give a little bit of his 2 cents and knowledge on the subject. A quick heads up for you guys, these shows were recorded 3 months ago out in LA. So if any of the numbers, if any of the dates seem out of place, just want to give you a heads up now on the Bus Podcast gives to you Taylor and Kevin Monahan. Shout out to Ed. Thanks big much, Ed. And we're here with Taylor Monahan. I probably butchered it. Did I say it right?
Yeah, you got it. You did it.
Yes.
Got it right. Co-founder of MyEtherWallet. Thank you so much for coming out today. How are you doing?
Thank you. So good. It's been really excellent, and this is going to be a fun Saturday morning.
Doesn't get better than
Yeah,
that.
a lot of good pre-talk for sure.
Yeah.
Hour of pre-talk, but now we're getting going. And on this episode, everybody, we're here to really get in depth on the idea, the theory, whatever you want to call it, of cryptocurrency. Taylor herself works with MyEtherWallet. Ethereum is one certain type of cryptocurrency. We're going to go into detail into that. Blum, take it away from here.
We're just going to start off with learning about cryptocurrency. We're going to do our best to assess what blockchains are, the whole technology and how it works before we evolve into a little bit more about your company, your business, get into ICOs and some of the more advanced concepts before we really dive deep into your brain and our brains on what this means for government regulation. And so we're super excited. And I think, what's your first question, Brandon?
What is cryptocurrency? Let's start from there. Definition, because
That's
we're going to butcher
it. Oh, God. So cryptocurrency and like blockchain technologies are basically a new way to, I guess, store information and share that information. And then, you know, what Bitcoin does is it's this ledger. So you can basically have this very open, transparent record of who sent money to whom at what time. And therefore, you can determine like who has what amount of money. So rather than like your bank account where you have this centralized service that's keeping track of how much money you have and your mom has and your friend has and that rich guy has, this all happens on this public ledger. And then everyone can then like see it and verify it. And so, you know, it's transparent. It opens up a world that has, you know, different governance structures. It opens up.
How does it get verified?
So with Bitcoin, you have the miners, which they're the ones that sort of build this ledger or this blockchain. So when you, like, let's say I want to send you a Bitcoin. I initiate the transaction, which is basically like this string of code that goes out into this big decentralized internet world, right? And then that transaction goes into like a pool of all the transactions, and then the miners select the transactions which are valid and like meet like right now it's like the miners are like, we want the ones with the highest transaction fees so that we can take more money, and then those get put into blocks, and then the blocks become a chain, and that's sort of how it all gets built up. And so if you go back through every single transaction and every single block, that's like the flow of money from person to person or account to account. that's like from the beginning of time, or the beginning of Bitcoin.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, what's happening is these miners, they're putting all the transactions on a public ledger so that every single person can see this, and then they stay recorded in blocks so that the blocks are never able to be touched. So if I send money to him, that gets recorded on there, and the money then is forever stay there. So every person who has access to this ledger knows that we had a transaction.
Right, exactly. And then, like literally anyone can go and see. So you can go on blockchain.info for Bitcoin, and, if you just go to the I think it's probably the homepage, you can see those transactions come through. You can see that, XYZ random address sent 0.5 Bitcoin to ABC address over here. And so, if you you could just like scroll down forever and see every single transaction from the beginning of time. You can also do things like search it, and you can look at your account to see your balance and your incomings and your outgoings, just like you would a normal bank account. Like you can see that you went and spent $10 at 7-Eleven. You can see that you spent 0.1 Bitcoin sending it to your buddy or whatever you did.
So to take this back a step, what created the spawn of this technology? Like, why did someone create this? I'm going to bring a name, Satoshi. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Yakamoto.
What birthed this technology? Was there a problem that was being solved, and why did it come about, and where?
I think that the original sort of ideas behind a digital currency is probably probably the 70s or 80s, and I know that Nick Szabso and Hal Finney and all of those guys were really involved in it. And I think that there's a number of problems that it can solve, but I think that the question of how did this happen is most likely really smart people were curious about something and came up with an idea. And now, with Bitcoin and its popularity, that's really kind of what makes it remarkable. There's been other, ideas, and there's been experiments, but they've never delivered on the promises in the way that Bitcoin has. And then, once Bitcoin sort of existed and was used and oh, hey, this works, when you have that moment, then you sort of have this rapid expansion of technology surrounding it, which is where, Ethereum comes from, or Monero come from. All these different digital currencies sort of are building off of these core ideas, which were actually thought up, but 20, 30, I don't even know how many years ago, when computers were first existing. People were like, oh.
Yeah, it has to do with the internet first being developed. This would be an idea to use on top of that platform.
Right, exactly.
A big thing that gets thrown around is the term decentralization.
Yeah.
And, what money and what currency actually is. It's built under a centralized, whether it's a government or centralized rules. What does Bitcoin or all these other cryptocurrencies, how do they decentralize, and what does that actually mean for people to make transactions? And for example, even with the blockchain, that now everything's accountable for. So how are my normal everyday transactions with regular US dollars at a gas station or a grocery, can a cryptocurrency account for everything, and now it's a record? And is that a better thing, or is that not a better thing?
Yeah, so the core sort of I guess the best thing about decentralization is that you don't have this single solitary party or collection of parties with the power to corrupt, with the power to steal, with the power to do whatever. So, when we look at your traditional banking system,
bank? Okay.
yeah, is and especially, in developing countries, the governments are very, closely tied to the banks, or the bank may be the government, or vice versa. So, when you look at things like that, your money's being held by this one sort of quote unquote person. And if they decide that they want to take your money, there's not a lot that you can do, especially in developing countries. When you talk about decentralization, you're talking about just basically removing that centralized party, that bank, that government, whatever, removing it completely from the picture. And so the way that we do that with digital currencies and blockchain is that you give every single person the ability to verify the transactions.
What do you mean by give every single person the ability to verify the transaction?
So hypothetically, you could go buy like a miner, like a machine that mines, right? And you could like go and like literally help build the blockchain, like help decide what transactions are going to be included and which ones aren't. And as like a normal person, you can, go and look at the blocks or look at the transactions using, it's called like a full node. It's basically the same stuff that you see on blockchain.info or Etherscan is that's the blockchain. Like that's, you're looking at the actual transactions. So you can go and verify like, okay, this person actually did send this or they didn't send this or whatever happened. You can go see that through any number of tools. And you can't do that with a bank. Like I can't just go pull up a website and see how much you sent from like Chase to Bank of America or, you to your mom or you to 7-Eleven or whatever.
So basically the biggest discrepancy is public versus private. Am I understanding that properly? Like one is like I said before, like you said, everyone has access, and then one is these people control access. Mm-hmm. Can you define the node a little bit more?
The way that the decentralization works in these is that is that you have a distributed system of nodes, and then these are usually like sometimes they're miners, so they're the people that are actually creating the blocks, but sometimes like MyEtherWallet, we have like 3 nodes, and so we're the ones listening for people sending transactions. And like when I talk about the transaction pool, like literally imagine like a huge pool full of like people like being like, I want to send $3 to my buddy and throwing it in the pool. And then instead of that pool being like the pool that is JP Morgan Chase or like the government or whatever, that pool is like this thing that exists on the internet. And then anyone like MyEtherWallet, we put transactions into that, but we also are listening to it. And so we're like, okay, we're taking records of like which transaction is here and which transaction is here. And then the miners are the ones that pick up those transactions and put them in blocks. And then that blockchain that gets built up from there, that's like this infallible thing. That's like the record and the history and the everything.
So everyone can, so they confirm so everyone confirms every transaction.
Yeah.
So every one of those nodes says this is a good transaction, it's good to go, and then once that happens, it puts it into the blocks, and the blocks will say, all right, this is forever here, this transaction happened, it exists, right. Everyone knows it exists, that person gets the money, or that person gets the cryptocurrency, and we're good to go from here. Now that person can trade the money if they want to, or this person can, and every single time that happens, they throw it into the pool, so everyone can look at the pool and decide that this is a good transaction. I don't know if you have a question, but I want to know what happens if someone tries to fake that transaction, or like, I guess, what is done to secure this?
So yeah, that's like the big sort of magic and why it's really good that really, really smart people are building these things, because
I don't understand the encryption, that stuff.
Yeah, cryptocurrency is really new. And so the way that it works is like this raw underlying technology. It's called like, there's elliptical curve cryptography, and this is where the crypto comes from, is like the cryptography part of it. This technology, this public key and private key technology, it basically secures everything. Like everything in the world. Like it's how your HTTPS websites work. It's how the NSA keeps its secret safe. It's like everything.
I even think a really cool analogy, heard from Neil deGrasse Tyson, is like, and Edward Snowden did an interview, is that because all of our messages are encrypted and we sent anything out into outer space, and if an alien were to pick it up, they would have to have our tools of encryption in order to figure out what our messages are. So even if they had the technology for cryptography, we would never be able to decode any messages that came back our way. So we'd never understand anything anyway. So all this static or noise we hear could be something, it couldn't be something. We wouldn't know.
That's so deep.
Yeah, so we need so alien encryption is the next level.
Yeah.
Cryptocurrency
Next level.
Translations. Send them a key so they can understand it.
So this
Yeah.
Okay, so
this is like one of my favorite things about sort of cryptocurrency. And so you learn all these things about that are like way bigger than it. It's not this little like internet fad that some people kind of see it as. It's like, it's just raw. We're not hiding everything from you. So the way that this works is that you have a private key and you have a public key. And the private key derives the public key. So basically you take the private key and you do a bunch of like math to it, and then you have the public key. And this is your address. So this is where you tell people to send your Bitcoin or your Ether or your whatever. You can't go backwards. Like you can't, with only your public key, you can't turn it into a private key. So if you think of it as like the public key is your username and the private key is your password, like they are connected, but it's a one-way street. Okay? What makes it really remarkable, anyone can like prove or like understand that this public key, you can verify that the person had the private key. So you can sign a message or whatever. You can very easily be like, okay, this person has this password, right? So when you sign in your email, if you send me an email, like I know that you have your password, right? Like you couldn't have sent me an email without your password. The same thing applies to this public key, private key situation. You can verify very easily that somebody indeed owns this account, indeed has access to the private key that produces this public key, but they can't get the private key themselves. And so you have this very interesting way of being able to have a transparent and open and decentralized mechanism that's also supremely secure, which is like the most important thing when we're talking about billions of dollars.
And I think that with this technology, it's the idea that we can move money much more readily at much faster speeds than it happens now. I think typical banking institutions, it takes like 5 days or 2 to 5 days to get a wire across something with like Ethereum takes 8 seconds.
I mean, there's a variety of factors, but Ethereum, so the block times are about 15 seconds. So every single 15 seconds, a block with like 20 transactions ish is like created. It's like, okay, the block is here, and then the next one is here, the next one is here. In Bitcoin, it's every 10 minutes. So every 10 minutes, there's a block that's like stuffed full of transactions that's going into the blockchain. So however long, I mean, you can send it right now and it just is, like in Bitcoin, it'll be 10 minutes until it's included in the block on the blockchain. And then for sort of like the security's sake, if you're dealing with a lot of money, you want to wait for, they call them confirmations. So you want to wait. So if you have one block is 10 minutes, you want to wait for 2 blocks, so 3 blocks, it's just 10, 20, 30 minutes. But that's like for security reasons. Like hypothetically, you know, in Ethereum, you sent your transaction, it's done, it's over. The person has access to those funds in 15 seconds.
And now, it's supposedly not as secure as a typical banking institution. It's much more faster, much more accountable, but the threat of security is much higher, especially not putting your funds in, let's say, the Ledger wallet or Ether wallet, because leaving it on the web, it can just get picked off or hacked by any and everyone.
Right. So there's 2 different things that we should talk about. There's like the security of the network itself and like the knowledge or like the assumption or whatever you want to call it that you couldn't say walk into the room and be like, I'm going to take everyone's money right now because the underlying technology is insecure or is broken or something. Like that would be bad if you could literally be like, okay, I'm going to write some code and just steal everything from the blockchain. That said, the security issues lay at sort of the front end user level because it's so new and it's so conceptually different than what we typically deal with. You know, that private key is like your lifeblood. Like it's not a password that like, okay, you can go reset it or, you know, you can turn on 2-factor or whatever. It's like, if I get your private key, then I have your private key. The underlying technology is secure, like the protocol level stuff that you don't even think about in the technologies that you use today, that's secure. The issue is that we're like, 7 years into this? Ethereum is less than 2 years old. So the security of users' accounts, the security of protecting users from themselves and the mistakes that they make, the protection of like say insurance. So the one thing is like we don't have, if you lose that private key and you lose your funds, the things that you don't have are like a bank to refund you.
It's gone.
It's gone. Like it's if your private key is gone, like it is gone. There's nothing.
What's being built? Is
We
there
have a
stuff
few
being built
friends-
to
we have a few
secure
friends
that?
who have lost some cash.
Yeah.
Brendan,
Yeah,
you can't go in.
course.
This guy. It's
Just
gone.
It's just gone. And so this is like super mind-boggling. And this is what.
Are they working to fix that? Like, is that something
Oh
that's
yeah,
being developed?
this is like the services. So remember, like when you had your really old, crappy like phone, like your Nokia brick
one with
or
the
your
snake on
pager?
it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Like like it worked, but not really. And then you had like the phones, like the first Blackberries that had like the slightly bigger screen, and
And
like
then the razor.
and then you could like hypothetically like quote unquote browse the internet with them. It's like it takes time to develop the things so that at the end of the day we have your fancy iPhone 7, you know, with your bling bling case and your whatever entire life on it. That's the process that we're going through right now. Right now we're like at like pager level. You know what I mean? Like we really are we are like building the ability to do this, and give it a few years and you know, you'll have some, you know, comparative Apple building the iPhone.
That's a great analogy. Like that's where we're at in the stage of the development. The biggest concern people probably listening to this are going to think is they're going to say, okay, well, yeah, but a phone is a small product that I call people on, whereas this is my money that I'm transacting with people.
But that's why the beeper analogy was great, because all you see on the beeper is like, oh, someone's paging me from this number. It could be someone sending me money from this. I don't know what this address is. It's like, how long are those things? Like 50 numbers and
there's
numerals. Who is this? I don't know what it is. But that's a great stage to see. Okay, this is what's actually going on. Again, someone who doesn't even know what they're doing still, like me, I can get that analogy. My next question was these coin tickers. I'm seeing the value of a lot of these coins, whether the wide range of coins that I personally am invested in, but you know, I'm basing them off U.S. dollars. Mm-hmm. And if I'm trying to base those off U.S. dollars, and you know, an Ethereum coin or a Bitcoin are trying to take, I wouldn't say take the place, but they're supposed to have more, again, accountability for stuff. Like, so if the money that we have nowadays is called a fiat currency, and there's nothing actually backing it up or behind it, is cryptocurrency looking to fill the void of that? Or, you know, is eventually going to be like, oh, U.S. dollars are going to be based off what the price of Ethereum is, or a price
What's
of
its
a
applicable
Bitcoin.
use?
Right. So, I mean, we're getting to like the fundamental sort of like existential question of like, what is value? And like,
Absolutely.
Why would you do something? I mean, the thing is that money in general is no longer like backed by gold. Like banks don't have like gold reserves. They don't, you know, the Fed doesn't have gold reserves. Like nobody, it's all sort of like this fake hypothetical situation. And it's really, you can think of most of like the global like economy or the global world mostly operates on like a similar sort of ledger.
Huge
quote,
basis
unquote.
of trust.
And so you have like this ledger of like, okay, X country owes X country $10 bazillion. You know what I mean? And then that country can go spend that money, and they can, you know, have credit and spend it, and then come back and be like, oops, we can't repay you. And, you know, this, like, somehow this whole mechanism works, but it's doesn't really work that well. Like, there are a ton of problems with it. So, you know, to get back to, like, where does cryptocurrency play a part? The way that the global sort of money, the way it exists right now, it's been evolved and it's been corrupted and it's been, you know, things have been built on things have been built on things. And at the end of the day, as a user, like as a consumer, you really don't have like that much power, and you really don't have like the ability to truly, like when you're sending someone money, you're not sending them money. You're not giving them like a dollar bill anymore. You're basically initiating a transaction to your bank, who initiates it to its bank, and on and on and on. So one of the ways that, like the value of cryptocurrency is like eliminate that top high level, like weird money isn't really money and you're not really sending it and it's all like based on numbers that somebody comes up with somewhere. Like just get rid of all that and like get back to the basics where I have something of value, I can send it to you, now you have something of value.
I mean, over time, whatever we've just defined as value has changed. I mean, it was seashells at one point, and then it was tulips, and then it was silver, gold, or any other shiny metal element. For some reason, humans were fascinated by shiny metal, and we determined that's value, especially, for example, something like jewelry or diamonds. And it's like, these things actually don't cost that much money, and they don't cost that much money to make or find, and they're everywhere, but we're going to say it costs us much. And
that's value. That's how value is created. Like, I mean, one of the easiest ways to make something valuable is to like limit its availability.
Yes, and that's the big thing you see with diamonds, that they'll find all these diamonds, they store them in one central location, hide them away from everybody. It's like, we're going to only a little bit out for the rest of the world to purchase and buy. We can jack up the prices.
Right.
Because that's how you determine love as well on our planet.
Exactly.
Welcome to Earth. It seems like you said, with the overlying principles of, getting cryptocurrency for people just to determine what value is, it's a much better way for people to get out, whether you want to say poverty, or to boost people up from a lower class into a middle class. And something we were talking about before is that we remove that level, that third party that gets to decide, who gets to lend and who gets to exchange money. Now you could have, me lending money to a grandmother in India who's sitting there and who might need money and it's written on a blockchain. It's accounted for, and it's always there for me to use it to her to send me money, for someone to send money to her. I think that's one that's been developed with a company like WeTrust.
That's what I think they're working on,
is something on that. And it's, again, another technology built, I think they're built out of Ethereum as well.
Yeah.
That, again, it's just another great source, a much more accountable way to exchange money and to lend money for people, because you see this in developing countries, especially like an International Monetary Fund, the IMF, and U.S. government or another people who manage and run the IMF. We are going to send you this $1 trillion, and it's going to go to the government of that country, and they're going to get to decide where that money gets stuffed in their pockets or gets to build the infrastructure. So when this blockchain or when these different cryptocurrencies go off, the money, there I go, off on a tangent, I lost myself.
So this is, I think, one of the most like sort of accessible ideas about this is if you think about like charities. So right now, let's say that you want to donate like $10 to a kid that's living in a third world country who needs that $10. The steps that happen in order for you to send that $10 is something like this. You initiate a transaction from your bank account to the bank account of the, I don't want to put like the Red Cross on blast here, but like, you know what I mean? Like a charity, right? And then it goes from their bank account, and you don't really know. Like, I mean, you really don't. Like, what happens to your $10?
They invest it, who knows what they do
so
with that $10.
It could go to overhead. It could go to whatever. And, at the end of the day, a certain amount does go to that kid that needs that money. But how much? Is it 1%, 10%, 50%?
A lot of it's like under 10%. A lot of it does go to overhead and like managing and operating these charities. Right.
And the other thing to keep in mind is when you send that money, so if you're sending from your credit card, say, the credit card company themselves gets like a 3% plus like 20 cents for that transaction. Now the Red Cross or whoever, the charity, is going to go spend that money. So they're going to have another fee, which is then going to go internationally. And now we're talking about international remittance fees, which are way up. Okay, so now that $10, is without anything, even just looking at the fees that it costs to send money from one place to another, you've already lost. Like, you've already, cut so much of it out. Digital currencies, like, imagine a world where if that person needs $10, it costs you, no matter where in the world they are, as long as they have an internet connection, it's going to cost you like less than 5 cents to send however much money you want to them. And that's it. Like, you know what I mean? That's the whole sort of stretch.
Peer-to-peer, so to say.
Right.
Yeah.
The biggest thing about speaking of charity is when you give someone charity, you don't know that your money, you know, they can legally take over 20%. Imagine if you can actually transact directly, forget a corrupt government, forget a person who might want to take out a percent like that. You know that child is getting that currency to use it. That's the most impeccable thing about it to me.
Is it just internet connection? Let's say, you know, we're going to solve this problem right now. All right. We're designing the plan. We want to make sure that this child, or any individual in a developing country, wants to get, you know, funds with only a 5 cent fee on top of it. Is it just internet connection? Do we need to get them a certain wallet? Do they all need a Ether wallet, a Ledger wallet? What's the next step besides them having internet connection?
Well, so they need a mechanism that allows them to, you know, safely have their private key, and so that they can then go suspend it and receive it and whatever. So, you know, it could be a Ledger wallet, like a hardware wallet. It could be like a piece of paper. It could be like a credit card. You know, it could be like a physical card that has their information on it. Any number of things. You know, that's what, when we talk about sort of where we are in the progress of these things, those are the things that need to be built. You know, at the end of the day, like your credit card number and your account numbers, you don't even think about them, but they're the same as sort of your private key. You know what I mean? So we need to find a way to, you know, enable people to really, really easily. And Nick Johnson he has these things called Ether cards, and they're quite literally like a physical card that's like a credit card size thing that has your private key on it, and that has like a QR code with your address, and it's really like well designed and all of those sorts of things. And they're perfect for beginners because you can get one. The private key is hidden, so you just like, you can't see it. You just scratch it off like when you want to spend that money or move that money. And that's it. Like, you don't have to go, like you can hypothetically, I could have a card, send funds to that card, give you that card. I wouldn't have access to that account, and you would have access to that account once you scratched off the little scratcher. So that's like one, you know, pretty clever way.
What other technological advancements are coming around this? Like, what else is being built outside of it? I mean, you could tell us about your company, about MyEtherWallet, and what problem that solves.
So back to charities for like 2 seconds, though.
Yeah, please.
So if anyone is like super into charities and that whole world, there's Griff Green does Giveth.io, and he's basically trying to like solve all of these charity problems like on Ethereum. And so they're building a ton of really cool products, and they're building a community, and they're doing really, really amazing things. So Giveth.io, and then try to find their Slack because it's really, really awesome and active. The technologies that are being built, what MyEtherWallet does is that we give you an interface, like a user interface where you can click things to generate a wallet or send a transaction, or anything you want, like on the Ethereum blockchain. The next step to this is making it easier and making it more accessible for everyone to use. So like, we make it more accessible than our predecessor, the command line, which is what, you know, that's what, when Ethereum started, that's what you use. Like, you would type things into a black box on your computer. The next step is going to be, okay, how do we, you know, whether it's a card, whether it's a hardware wallet, how do we enable people to be super, super secure and keep their private key private, keep that a secret, without having to understand what a private key is? That's the $1 million question.
So besides the private key, there's different security things to protect your wallet. I think with I got a Ledger wallet, there's like a 24-word code.
And they're all mechanisms to try to make it like easier for you to, they're all solving different problems. So with the mnemonic, it's really, really cool. So one, you have these 24 words, which are readable, and they're not random numbers and letters, so they're easier to type. In theory, I guess you could memorize them. I would not rely on my memory to remember 24 words, but you know, that's one thing. The other cool thing is with your ledger, you actually have that one phrase actually like creates multiple, well, it doesn't create, but it drives multiple accounts. So on your ledger, you have like a bunch of different addresses that you can hypothetically send to. And so that that feature basically enables you to have only remember one thing or save one thing, but have access to multiple addresses, which is good.
I think we've done a decent job of getting people and explaining what is everything we're talking about right now, the topic and subject.
I think we probably lost a few.
Yeah. Either way, I mean, it's a somewhat difficult topic to digest.
It really is.
But I think that helping people get out there and understand that this is something, at least in all of our eyes, that's going to change the way that we view money. And so whether they understand it now or whether they at least get some like idea that it's out there is super important. And that's why we wanted to have this conversation with you, because we want to be able to bring that to people. And so, yeah, we try to, we break it down for them a little bit, and now we're,
where would you send someone who, is as raw as they come to this idea and these principles? Where would you send them to study and learn, whether it's articles to read or, to go invest some of their own fake cash into this cash?
If you're in the US, it's Coinbase is definitely the easiest way to sort of get started. So basically with Coinbase, they enable you to, I don't know how much it is right now. Is it like $300? Anyone know?
Ooh, ETH check.
ETH is at 322 last time we looked. It's an all-time high today.
So with Coinbase, you can probably buy about 1 ETH with your debit or credit card. It depends on a whole variety of factors, but basically you go on Coinbase, you create an account. You're not creating like an Ethereum account, you're creating like a regular user account. So you're going to give them your name, your email address, you're going to create a password, all that normal stuff. And then you can use your credit card or your debit card or a bank transfer to buy a little bit of ETH. If you want to buy like a lot of ETH or Bitcoin or whatever, you have to do like
there's different verifications where you have to give a social security number.
It's all the regulations.
Well, I know I pushed my limits on Coinbase because it's my first time.
Yeah,
I just put $5,000 right away. They're like, no, you can't spend anymore yet. You gotta wait. You gotta wait.
So read the limits beforehand. If you want to get your hands on some Bitcoin or some ETH, and you're in the U.S., the easiest way is Coinbase. And basically, what you're gonna do is you're gonna go to Coinbase.com. You're gonna create an account, and then they allow you. It's either $300 or $500, but they allow you to buy like a small amount with your regular debit card or your credit card, which is really, really nice because you don't have to like do the whole bank wire thing, and it happens pretty quickly and stuff like that. So this enables you to then have an account with some ETH in it, and then they have a phone app, they have all these sorts of things. Then you can start diving deeper into like the underlying technology and the different things that you can do with them. For example, with ETH, what's really popular is all the token sales that are going on right now and all the different projects that are booming. So with Coinbase, you can basically think of it as like the gateway. They allow you to go from US dollar into Bitcoin or into Ether. Once you're there, if you want to expand your reach into the ecosystem and start playing with these tokens, that's where MyEtherWallet comes in. And so I'll give you guys a link, but there's like a really helpful kind of getting started guide for starting at Coinbase and getting it into your MyEtherWallet. The primary difference is with Coinbase, you have a username and password. They're sort of like, they're not really a bank, but they're in charge of protecting like your keys. So you don't have to see your keys. And if you want to stay on Coinbase they're reputable. If you want to keep your funds there, that's probably a good choice if you're just getting started, because you don't have to worry about your private keys and all that. Once you sort of like start experimenting and getting into this, MyEtherWallet, you can create a wallet, you can send ETH, you can send tokens, you can everything you can do. for that, you just want to start slow. Like, that's my best advice is, like, do not take your life savings, throw it into Coinbase. Okay, and then
Too late.
Do not take all the money.
Do
that
not
you have.
do that.
Well, except if it's gonna go up, 400% a month. But
and then and then especially the one that I deal with all day is like not the life choices people make about their savings, but hey, I just sent like an ETH to my wallet. Where is it? What do I do now? Figure that out before, and the first transaction that you make, have it be like $1. So like 0.01 ETH, not 1 ETH or 10 ETH or 1,000 ETH. Like, start slow, ease yourself into this, please, because it's new technology. We make it really easy in theory, but it's new. Like the words that we use are it's just different. So that's my best advice is figure out an amount of money that you're willing to lose, and then put it in Coinbase, and then just play with it. You know what I mean? I think one of the worst things that people do is not the worst, but if you have this expectation that you're just going to put all your money into this thing and everything's going to be happy, and you just sort of dive in and move quickly, like, things can go really wrong, and there's no insurance, there's no refunds, there's no reversing transactions. Like, if you send that to the wrong address, it lives in the wrong address now.
This is a purely speculatory market at this point, or a lot of people have money in for the actual technology?
It's probably a healthy mixture of both. I mean, the speculative value of these is through the roof right now, which is exciting because it's $300. Like, that's amazing. Like, that's super cool. But, I mean, if you look at the graph, it's pretty bubbly right now. The value of Ethereum is not necessarily the same as like the value of Bitcoin, where Bitcoin is seen as digital gold, where it's a store of value, where Bitcoin almost exists so that you can put your money into Bitcoin and then take it out later and it'll be more money. With Ethereum, you have a lot of different applications. So with Ethereum, technically Ethereum, it's the fuel that run these decentralized applications. Like, that's why it was built, and that's what the future will be, and that's sort of like what you can do right now. These tokens are actually strings of code that run on the Ethereum blockchain, and those tokens in themselves have value. So when we talk about like WeTrust, or we talk about Aragon, or we talk about anyone that has this token, Ethereum is the fuel that it runs on. The token has this additional value depending on what they're building. So Golem is building a like super computer that will basically like create a decentralized network that you can like render things with. So Golem is basically, okay, so this is how it sort of works.
So these are all other coins. These are the alternate
So
coins.
these ones are tokens built on Ethereum.
Okay.
And this is what I say what gives Ethereum value is these tokens at the moment. Ethereum in itself, there's some really crazy things and cool things. But right now...
Real quick. When you say token, is that like an Ethereum coin?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So like the GNT Golem, that token is built on Ethereum and it runs on Ethereum. When you send that token, you're spending ETH to send it, like a 0.001 ETH to send that token from one place to the other. So Ethereum, the underlying entire thing that everyone's freaking out about and is now $300, is actually the fuel to run the applications on top of it. And the tokens are one application.
I just had like a big aha moment myself.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency and Ethereum is a platform in which you can use cryptocurrencies on. Somewhat good explanation?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, yeah, the primary difference between Ethereum and Bitcoin is like Bitcoin, the goals of the people developing it and growing it and building things on it are mostly surrounding like currency and store of value and being like this digital gold. Ethereum is the whole like premise of it is that it's Turing complete, which means that the blockchain itself can have and execute code. So with Bitcoin, I say, I want to send you 1 Bitcoin. I send you 1 Bitcoin. End of the day. With Ethereum, you can write whatever contract you want. They're called smart contracts. You can write whatever code you want or have someone else write it for you. And I can say, I want to send you 10 ETH, but only if I haven't sent you 10 ETH today. So I want to send you 10 ETH every day, but no more than 10 ETH. Or I want to send 10 ETH, like I want to have a max limit of the amount that I can send today. Or I want to only send if both me and Kevin both approve that this money should move.
There's rules to it. There's like functions. It's like in math where there's functions where you can have different set of rules that represent. So it's like a much more, I guess, advanced version of Bitcoin. Okay, cool. Yeah. So smart contracts. Can you give us a quick rundown of what those are? Because I know you can keep that as brief as possible if they're complex. But
so
I've heard a lot about those.
Yeah. So we're like this conversation kind of jumps all over the place. But yeah, the Ethereum blockchain can execute the smart contracts. The smart contracts are whatever you want them to be. So just like with any programming language or any code that you write, really smart people write them and then they do things and they hopefully do what the person intended. Ethereum, does that. So, when we talk about only send this ETH if both people approve, that's a smart contract that exists right now called a multi-sig. And so, but then there's other things. So like these token sales, right? Token or idea or whatever that's not speculative, that's actually sort of valuable is it's called storage. And storage, basically, you have this token, the storage token.
That's the STORJ one, right? Okay.
And you can basically store your files totally encrypted and like in little pieces on anyone's computer who's like accepting storage. Right now you have Dropbox or Amazon or Box.net or whatever, right? You have these places that you store your files so that you don't have to store them on your computer, so that you can have either a backup or because you don't have any room on your computer. All right, so that's another example of a centralized location that you're storing your files, your Dropbox. With storage, it creates and it incentivizes this network of people who want to make money and have free space on their computers. Okay, so let's say I have like a fat computer.
Wow, that's sick.
Yeah, and I'm like, hey, yeah, I'll let random people store stuff on this. I'm not using it. And so basically whatever space I'm using, I get paid for by the people that are storing the files on my system. And so this is happening in a huge decentralized network, right? And it's really, really cheap. Like, we're not talking like you're going to pay me $5 to put on my computer. It's all this token that's now on Ethereum, automatically just sort of doing it. You're like, I want to store 50 gigabytes. Okay, they're going to do the math. The token itself has this much value. You're going to send the tokens. And, I think on their site, I was just looking at it, it's like less than 5 cents for like a gigabyte.
So this is basically taking the exact same technology, the blockchain technology, but using it for other applications. Mm-hmm. And like, I think of this, I'm trying to liken this to something in the real world. There's a parking app, I think. This seems exactly like this parking app. The parking app is like an Uber for parking, where people have parking spaces in front of their house and you want to drive around and other people can share your parking space. Mm-hmm. I guess this just records the parking space. The key is this records that you use this parking space in the major location. And this records that your storage is in a safe location.
Yeah. So basically it's like, we're like, the way that I'm explaining it, we're imagining that like I am a person and I send you a file and you have the file, just like with the parking space. I have a car and you're like this singular thing. In reality, it's this huge, like, all the people with all their files, and then all of the nodes that are accepting the storage of these files. And then it all happens like transparently, and it can be verified with these exchange of tokens. So like, you can say that, I want to store 1 gig or 2 gigs or 5 gigs of data. I'm not going to send you the 5 gigs of data. It's just going to like the really smart people that are building these things have built this decentralized system where it's going to like take the pieces of all my things and encrypt them and like put them out into the storage, and then I'm going to pay the tokens, and the tokens are automatically without a middleman. There's no middleman. You're not going to pay the app itself, who then whatever, the bank and the government, like it's just going to go from me to the person who has my files.
And you'd be using Ethereum, no?
Yeah, and it's all built on Ethereum.
And you'll get it back whenever you want.
Right, and then it all trickles back. And so, like, basically it's this, it's easier to understand it when you're like, here's a person, here's a person, here's a file. But when you look at it in this really, really large, widespread, distributed way, it's like, there's the value. Because if it was just one person, one file, you'd be like, well, just give them $1. Like, there's no problem. But, I mean, imagine that every time you uploaded a file to, like, your Dropbox, it was actually, going through this system, and that the person who had that space on their computer that was hosting that file for you for the moment, automatically got, 0.0001 cent for your Word document, right? And then this is happening, like, with everything, like everywhere.
This feels so efficient too. That means like they're utilizing the space that's out there properly instead of tons of additional unused space that people are paying money for.
Exactly. Like, why do you need Dropbox to have like an entire state full of servers when we all have computers? We all have old computers. We all have computers that have a bunch of space. Like, my dad every single time buys like the best MacBook Pro. Okay, and you know what's on his MacBook Pro is like Word documents. Like, do you know what I mean? So it's like that space, one, there's someone out there that has limited space that's going to find his extra space valuable, and then he can be rewarded for using that space.
I think the part where I'm a little confused on, I think others might get confused on, is how does the token itself of storage get value? Like, what is the value? I see the service is providing,
right?
But how is, like I'm seeing, like I'm just putting it towards like a ticker, or like storage is now $1.07. $1.07.
That's a good question.
That's a
Why
great
does it
question.
go up?
You buy the quarters like, well, it's the same way that parking meters are now $2 an hour, and it used to be like 25 cents an hour. It's like
Scarcity, based on scarcity.
Yeah, but they have pricing on their site. So how do you have a coin that goes up in value?
Because it's still going to be a limited supply.
Is it based on US dollars?
Well, I think that one of the things we were talking about, like when I was taking the break, is the YouTube. So like, for example, in the YouTube example, if they built a YouTube platform on top of Ethereum where they where they charge you a coin based on what video you're watching. If you're watching, let's say, our home video, it's going to be absurdly cheap, 0.0001 of a cent to watch that video. But if you're watching something that's already up to 150,000 views, maybe it's incremental, where at 150,000 views, maybe it's supported by a bigger company that has better film. So you're going to get charged 1/10 of a cent or an actual whole cent because of the quality of the video. So maybe
quote unquote value.
Yeah, maybe based on the storage of the vehicle storage or on the size of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's all of these sort of ideas, for all of these different things, like what you're talking about right now, but also every single token that's out there right now and every single project in development is all based around sort of like this core idea that something that already, not always, but something that already exists could be more efficient, could be cheaper, could utilize resources differently, could be aided by like decentralization or aided by transparency. So with the charity ones, transparency is a huge benefit. But with like the storage one, or building a platform for content developers like YouTube, where the content developers, so the people that are creating these films and putting them on YouTube, are rewarded based on their viewership or their, like, I
It's
don't
like
know.
proper economic value. Like, people aren't being paid for content that they're giving out. They should be.
That's the problem right now,
That's
especially
the
with
problem.
streaming.
We're not
because
actually capitalism.
So
Spotify, they don't know how to calculate what a stream costs.
right. So, like, you guys don't get, like, your users don't pay for this feed that they're listening to right now.
No, it's
No.
an RSS, and
Do
we
you
it's just
guys
was on-
pay for it?
Yes, so we pay monthly fees,
whether it's
for
a
different-
SoundCloud
for
or
different things.
Podbean.
So yeah, you're right. Or imagine if our users were paying a hundredth of a cent, or if there's a really great guest that they really enjoy, that's a more rare guest, or someone who's A-list or something, then they would pay more money to see the show based on the quality. You know what I mean? Maybe ratings and reviews come back, and wow, this show is hot. It's incredible. People love Ethereum. They want to know everything about it. They love Taylor, and so what happens is the price increases. As I don't know, that's a possibility.
Well, that's
what
what
a
people
creeping
do
on
with
my
like
mind.
Patreon or
That's what I was going to say.
different-
Do you guys have a Patreon or no?
No.
Okay, so Patreon is such a good platform that could be so much better if it was on Ethereum.
Ethereum.
Okay, so you ready for this? Patreon is a centralized service where podcasters or like content creators set up an account. You guys, I'm surprised that you don't have one, because then like your users can pay you. They can reward you for providing them with entertainment, with good value, or good information or whatever, right?
Go on, I'm interested.
So so basically you go on Patreon and you guys set up this account, and then usually you'll set up things like where if they donate like $5 that you'll send them stickers, and if it's $20 and there's like repeating ones where you can do it every month or whatever. So that's all great. Your viewers can reward you for creating good content. Okay, you guys get paid for the hard work you do and the time and the energy that it takes to produce something like this. The problem is the Patreon person in the middle who built this platform and keeps like 1/3 of everything. So if this person sends you $10 because they loved your content, Patreon gets a few dollars, which is cool because like they built it and they should be rewarded. But at the same time, like, is like, it would be better if someone ran into you on the street and handed you a $10 bill.
I mean, I think we're getting into the practical uses of what this technology, like what its potential is, and the future that it potentially holds.
No, I think it's a huge problem that governments and just a lot of societies have in the world, because technology is a thing that we've created to make our lives easier, whether it's to provide less time, finding out where food for agriculture was something we developed these different tools and how to make food more readily available. Now we had more time to go discover the sciences, politics, and the art. And you see this the growth of civilization. And now we're having a huge problem with that because all these different jobs, especially blue-collar jobs, just don't exist anymore. And where are people going to spend all their time now if we don't have to worry about working? And if we can, provide what these different currencies, especially like Ethereum, that we can give people, or but people can pay people for different services, whether it's creating content or making things much more easier to pay someone, reward somebody for a solid service or transaction. It just makes the world a much better
As the
place.
robots come in and take over the jobs, then people will get into creating and doing their fun things. And look, we have the robots created something in which you can get paid for the things you enjoy doing. So it's a great solvent.
And it enables you, like, this is sort of the bigger, it ties in closely like with the whole sharing economy. So like the Uber and the those sorts of things, it just takes it one step further. So while Uber enables you to have this sort of sharing economy where you don't have like a taxi system, you have instead anyone can be a taxi. You can take it one step further and be like, anyone can be a taxi, and also Uber's not gonna be sitting in the middle collecting the money or enabling people to be a driver or not be a driver or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So how would that work is that's Swarm City. So if you Google it, that's another Ethereum token where they're building a whole community and platform and doing some awesome stuff to be like a decentralized Uber. Okay, like that's really mind-boggling to me, but it's like doable and people are doing it.
It's the accountability, and you see with governments or even like organizations like unions. They're there to protect the consumer, and I think that's what a lot of people are worried about, especially when you're saying a decentralized Uber. There's still what you think Uber. Okay, there's overhead. There's that centralization that people can just say, okay, if I do want a refund, for example, my Uber driver, I got back to Florida, and he's like, well, where are you going? Like, what do you mean you're asking where I'm going? You should know where I'm going. Well, maybe I'm not going to take you anywhere. Like, listen, this is not what I'm signed up for. I don't take a cab for these reasons, and you're doing this. But now, I could call Uber up and say, this guy needs, get rid of this guy. I want my money back, and they can still email me back and take care of that. Now, if it's completely decentralized, especially a service such as Uber driving or ride sharing, where's the overhead going to come from?
So there's a couple like different things. One, Uber already has like sort of a rating system in a way to sort of like classify or tell if drivers are good or not. So I think they force you after every ride to rate both the drivers and the riders. So that system, you actually don't need like Uber to be sitting in the middle for. Like, you really don't. Like, if I create an application where anyone can rate anyone and it displays that information, you don't really need like a centralized party. The advantage of having an Uber is for regulatory things, so for like lobbying the government to allow this to happen, refunds, as you said, some of the there's been some incidences which are not like, oh, my driver was an idiot, but that Uber can step in and try to either resolve or make sure both sides are happy, or say, okay, even though this guy has like good reviews, like it's game over. Like, he really screwed up, like done. Like, he can't be a driver anymore. So all of those things are good, but none of them are sort of unsolvable. If you have a community of people, and you have the technology to build it, it's just a matter of building it and addressing those problems, especially before they arise, and certainly like as they arise, which Uber's been doing too.
I think my friend last night was saying that there was a auto trader one that was building like an Uber on like a blockchain for Uber. I don't know if that's real or not.
Yeah, so that's Swarm City.
Okay.
It used to be like Arcade City, and it was like a little bit, there's like some drama that I won't go into with that, but Swarm City, like, they also have a Slack. They're super, super awesome. Really nice people, and they're trying to build this. Like, I can't say whether or not they'll be successful in building it, but like, this is sort of the potential. Like, these aren't easy problems to solve.
It's a great unknown right now, but there's a lot of huge potential options.
There's a ton of unknowns, and there's, it's crazy. But what I will say is that if you want the future to look like this, which I do, like, I want the future to not have Uber, but to have anyone have the ability to give anyone's rides. I want to be able to my excess computer space. I want to get paid for my excess computer space.
Rightfully so.
Even if you don't like buy Ether or Bitcoin or these tokens, you can still be really involved in the communities. So like there's Slack channels for pretty much every project out there. They have websites, there's Reddit, there's Twitter. Like, just hang out for a little bit and see what people are building. Because regardless of whether or not like X project is successful or not, it's going to shape the future in a much like larger scale. So
one of the questions that arises when we were talking about going back to the Uber, going back to Swarm, you look at, let's say that does get integrated. I think Uber's biggest problem with $700 million loss last quarter or last year is that it's the cost. So imagine if that cost is completely, let's say you reduce that in half, and this technology runs off the blockchain. You have all that additional money. That additional money gets put back into the economy somewhere. It's going back, disposable income, whatever. It has. The value of this to me is so much deeper from an economic standpoint because of all the additional money that we can have in our pockets to I don't know what the hell we're going to do with it, but we're going to have additional money in our pockets.
Yeah. So, I mean, one thing is like, okay, so let's say that this totally succeeds, and now there's sort of like this extra pile of money that was spent on whatever Uber spends it on, right? That is no longer needed and therefore is somewhere in our economy. One thing that ends up happening is that, you may be willing to spend a little bit more on a ride, right? So you can now reward the drivers for like the actual amount that they should be earning for driving you around, because, they're humans too, and you're all in this together. You're all on this like world together. So being able to like directly reward someone for the work that they do, or when we talked about the refund situation, or how do you deal with problems, or how do you these structures that do have a reason for existing, that's like where some of that money can go to, is like a decentralized pool of money for, situations that need to be refunded, where then there's some governance structure that and voting system where, you know what I mean?
It's like with WeTrust and people putting the bids in for who needs this money for a loan or investment for a company. And the lowest bid is actually the one who ends up eventually getting it. And it goes towards this pooled money that people can share now and use and go towards business that someone actually needs to develop it and grow it.
So, I mean, that's the thing, is like these things don't like fully exist in their entirety right now, but that's what we're working towards. That's what everyone is working towards, building these systems. And some people are building, literally just a protocol or a system in order to enable people to vote using their coins, or governance structures in general, like doing massive amounts of research on how does a collective group of people make the right decision.
So so in your mind, is this a complete positive way to a full infrastructure overhaul, to rebuilding tons of different systems that we're integrated in our daily lives that we don't even realize?
Yeah, I mean, if it keeps going this way, and I think that's why we're seeing, I think that while the price of like Ether right now and Bitcoin is so much of it is speculative, at the same time, there's real value here. And there are ideas and projects and really smart people that are building things that are gonna make a difference. And even if you don't even if the original goals of a project don't work out 100%, like let's say Swarm City, like they work their asses off for 2 years, and they have this thing that's working, and they have this community, and they have drivers, and they have all this stuff, but like it just doesn't ever like take that next step and become Uber. That's okay, because the knowledge that you learn, because the technology that you built, because of this forum, because of whatever it is, that's going to play a role in everyone else's projects, but it's also going to make Uber or Lyft or the next ride-sharing company make different decisions based on the success of this decentralized way. So maybe that's moving part of their systems into a more transparent way, or maybe that's moving part of their systems onto the blockchain to reduce transaction fees. These sorts of things are gonna, I'm not gonna tell you that we're gonna wake up in 5, 10, 15, 20 years and everything's gonna be Ethereum. I think that this whole decentralized, transparent blockchain technology is gonna be it's like the promises of the original internet have not been achieved today. But the things that have been achieved are so far beyond that and so different than that it doesn't really matter. It's still changed the world.
Yeah, the interesting thing you said before is when we're talking about value, is a lot of people say consumers, yes, use your money, use your purchases to determine how a company is going to go off and do things. And we've seen that there's no accountability in that still, because there's no value in it. And the same thing goes with something in politics. Go out and vote. They say, oh, it's going to change everything. When a certain amount of people still get to determine, whether it's through lobbying or financing politicians, who actually gets decisions made and how it gets done. And what this thing right here is, it just changes the rules. Because I have the same problem with another company like Venmo. I had too much money coming into a certain place here and there, and I didn't follow their rules, and then I got thrown off that.
Right, and you're done.
But
and Venmo made money the whole time.
Entire time.
That's what sucks. Yeah.
But again, it's for someone to say and look at, and say, okay, this is what they've been doing. This is what they did do. If I want to create something and found a problem someone's using it, it fixed a problem before, but I'm going to make it even better. And like you're saying, and what the entire thing with Ethereum is to make the building of those applications even easier and more optimal.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, that's a really good way of putting it. And it's, the value of this entire thing is going to be the value of the people building things and the value of the people using things and the value of regular people who aren't developers, who aren't like me. Like, I'm not super smart, right? Like, I'm not one of these geniuses who's like figuring out these protocol level issues that are going to enable like this future world where anything is possible. Like, but what I do is like, I learn about it. I support those smart people in every way I can. I hang out and I provide my opinions and I use the products and I provide feedback on those products. These are things that everyone can do. And, by doing that, by joining these communities, by learning what you can, by like basically trying to enable yourself and to like, I don't want to like get too like anarchist on it, but like you as a person should have more rights and the ability to do things without all of these third parties controlling everything you do, which is how it currently is set up, whether that's the government, a bank, or like Google, Dropbox, Apple.
Yeah, I think like people, like my opinion is that people are going to get left behind, the ones that don't adopt something like this. Like it's not an anarchist view, but I think that the technology is fantastic. It exists. It's going to give people access to things they didn't have access to before. Like, just think about some group of people in sub-Saharan Africa who their government won't allow them to do transactions, or like some construction company and they're trying to get funds from someone in Europe. Like, if you look at America, and we have a lot of bureaucracy, and we're making it difficult for our construction company in America to help them if we're not allowing us to do cryptocurrency trades with these people in sub-Saharan Africa, but China is, and then guess what? China's going to interact with them, and it's going to help them become, now we're talking a whole nother level. We're talking, they'll become the superpower, because all these sub-Saharan African countries there are tons of countries out there that need this. I would assume that the people that would adopt this first would be the ones that have a difficult time making transactions. Before we even started the show, we were complaining about how, it can take 8 hours to get your money but those people down there, their entire lives, they've waited weeks to even get food. So imagine this technology comes around and it gives you the potential to all of a sudden buy something on Amazon, food you had to wait 2 weeks for. Now you can get it shipped in via drone, and it comes in, and I just foresee that, back to the negative, the pessimist in me, I just foresee that if America doesn't allow us to adopt something like this, then we're going to get left behind, because the countries that do adopt it are going to move into the future quicker, and they're going to have the technology and integrate it, and then they're going to be able to innovate quicker.
Right. I mean, even like, I'll say that the U.S. regulations, especially surrounding this, like, they're not the worst. Some states are worse than others, but I will say that there are not a lot of Ethereum people like in the U.S. Like, one of the reasons I was almost late this morning was because, I'm typically up until 4 or 5 a.m. because everyone's in Switzerland or other places in Europe, because Switzerland is encouraging development into decentralized technologies, into blockchains, into crypto. Like, they're encouraging that. Where in the U.S., you're like, okay, if you want, like, if MyEtherWallet wants to take the next step and kind of do what Coinbase does, which is enable you to purchase via us, or have us have like backups, or like these sorts of things that would make everyone's lives easier, I have to get what's called a money transmitter's license, which I have to get from every single state, and it's like basically $1 million like overhead just for that
Yikes.
license to be able to do that. And it's to
That was a great note. Listen, that's part of the game.
that's the sound of the U.S. like losing its position in the world.
All right, and the anarchism begins. No, very.
It's interesting, but you're right. I mean, the thing is that the people who adapt and evolve are gonna do better than the ones that where, I mean, I think the biggest problem, one of the biggest problems with the U.S. is just the amount of, like, the top 1% of everything. Whether, you know, it's just, as an individual, you don't have the power that you should to do pretty much anything you want. And that's not how it's supposed to be. Like, the whole idea behind, and it's funny because
Constitution.
I hate, this is what I find so ironic is that, like, so the people that typically, like, bring up the Constitution and, like, throw it in your face are Republicans, but they're the ones that are, like, encouraging this sort of world where the top 1% win, you know?
This is the first thing I feel like that truly gives power into every single person, at least after finishing this conversation.
Well, again, it's those rules, like you said, the rules that certain people created, and the rules for even, you know, let's say your six-figure Republican politician is still creating rules that still only enhance that 1% to gain even more power.
Well, in crypto, that 1% changes so fast. Like, as a trader, like, I've ruined markets.
Yeah.
And I don't have that much money.
You can be the 1% in crypto.
And I literally can ruin someone's day. Like,
That's not a good thing,
for a lot,
Heather.
but like, and this is the thing is like, usually that dude with like millions and millions of dollars, like, I wouldn't be able to do anything about the fact that like I might know something better than he does. Like, I might be able to do something better because he can literally buy me out of it.
That's the most pessimistic thing I've heard today.
No, it's not. It's
Because
like,
I don't want you to do that.
I don't lose control of like where I'm at based on the fact that dude has millions of dollars. Like,
Should we slide him in?
Oh, I see. Okay, come here. Andy.
Yeah.
You can, come here.
Slide your chair in.
Because this is the thing is like I won't talk about trading, but he will. But don't be pessimistic. We're trying to talk about how the future is gonna be awesome.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying is it gives like all of like the little guys a much bigger foothold. Like, there's so many guys, and these are the people that are so much like the traders that you read about that are like, I made $100,000 with $5,000. It's because these dudes actually like are incredibly smart and good at something, but because of like brokers things on the market and whatnot, they have no chance of like getting that foot in. Whereas now it's like you can take $5, throw it onto Kraken, and like exchange it and make money. Like, and the thing is, with the way the crypto's going these days, is as long as you're putting money into crypto, you're making money. Like,
And what happens when the bubble pops?
so I mean, as long as you invested 2 years ago, you're straight. But
Okay, but let's talk about this because this is the thing. Listeners are gonna ask, especially with the price going through the roof. Their number one question is like, okay, should I buy right now?
And the thing is, like, I actually left
Would
his
you?
parents
But
like.
I mean, would you advise someone that you care about, not the audience, because we cannot give investment advice, but would you advise someone that you care deeply about to take their money and buy crypto right now?
Yeah. It depends on how much they're trying to throw into it and like what the term of the investment is, because like if you are planning on throwing money for 10 years right now, like you're like, I have this money, I don't need it for 10 years. Absolutely. I think throwing that money into crypto is most likely going to pay off based on the technology and the way it's growing right now. But like short term, like no. I don't think that like, I mean, there's a huge bubble right now. We're up 20 times or 10 times what we were in January.
Okay,
So the bubble's purely speculatory, is what you guys believe.
Crypto,
it's
except
right,
for Bitcoin right now, is 100% speculative.
But if you believe in the technology, then but it's still a bubble. It's like a speculatory bubble and not an actual technological bubble.
Right. So I mean, that's the thing is that the bubble exists, and the bubble exists for whatever reason exists. But if you look at the charts, it's gone up very, very rapidly, and you don't know how much it's going to go up, and you don't know how much of that is purely speculative and how much of it is, you know, actually the market seeing this as valuable.
Is it inflated because there's people see like these ICOs of these other coins? They're like, oh, new coins. So
I mean, it's
some of it's the major adoption. So Korea, Japan,
Korea's all in on it.
both huge. Like this was like the 600 to 1500 jump was I think Korea or maybe in India. That literally like these just Bitcoin, and this is the thing is like, we're complaining about the block times, but like these people don't give two craps. Like they're happy to have this ability to transfer money essentially between themselves and someone else without like, you know, they're like 5 cents a day that they're working for, like that they're like, well, maybe I can get food for my family. Like,
well, that shows why the technology is going to be used almost no matter what.
and this is why I say it's such a long term. That's great, but like the thing is, like we're up 5,000% on a ton of these currencies in 6 months. That's unheard of. Like if you see that on the stock market, like you short everything because like literally it's going to blow up. And my buddy who also does like real like stock market stuff is showing me this thing, and we're actually in a 2 times as long as our last bubble. Our last bubble was I think it was like 6 years, and this one's like been it was 3 years, and I'm in 12 years. The full
what bubble though? The
crypto
bubble?
the real estate, the stock bubble, like when the market crashed.
Like back in 2008?
General market bubble.
General market bubble. It's literally been twice as long, and we're twice as high as we were last time. And we're right at the point of where it looks like it's going to next 2-3 years. Maybe.
My biggest thing is where is it? Look, if this money is funneling, like money is. This money, fiat came originally from somewhere. So where the fiat the regular money that came from somewhere. Shouldn't somewhere be losing money? That's I'm like, who's is savings? Like people taking this
money.
But where does it? That's what he's asking is where does it go? Like how does the market?
Who do we short on the other end of the other end of the market while this goes up?
Right, exactly. It's all like that's the thing is that it's all like when we talk about a market cap going up $1 million or even $1 billion. That's like what 0.0001%. That's the Fed changing the interest rate on the real estate 0.001% or something. You know what I mean? So that's the thing is like it's hard to say like that this money was somewhere or isn't somewhere or whatever. It's like all money in the world has like a certain level of speculative value, and especially when you take the fact that everything relies on these interest rates, it's like so abstract.
Yeah, this becomes such an to like get deeper into this.
And
it's like
no
we're not
idea how it actually works.
Yeah, we're not like the deepest in economics.
I have one more question for you. If you are your average person, okay, like your average of average intelligence, average means
moderator,
average means average everything. What things do you consider when you're making like an investment into any coin? Any cryptocurrency, like what things that should you look at?
Got to look at the potential of a technology is one thing that you look for. Is like, do you actually like believe in this thing? Like, is this something that actually is a real thing that is going to be productive in the world?
Well, here I have a scenario for you. So, for example, let's say you want to invest in a certain coin that is based off an Ethereum platform, and you know that if this company or this technology, the application they're developing, is going to be successful, that's going to feed into the price of what Ethereum will potentially be. So if you're investing in it, you believe in Ethereum, you believe in the different applications and chains that are attached along to it, you can make, an investment into something because you know it's going to not just go towards the overall price of, let's say, a golem, because that's something based off the Ethereum platform, but it's also going to benefit Ethereum itself. Yeah,
it's one of the interesting things at this point is that Ethereum price is going to kind of like support all of these tokens because they're all based on it. But I mean, it'll be interesting to see how when some of these companies do succeed or don't succeed, how that actually affects the price.
As soon as some work, though, I would assume like if they work, then the other people are gonna these other ones can work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I ask you like, hey, what do you think of X token that's having a sale next week? When I ask you that, right? You go on your computer and you Google things or whatever. You read things. What do you search for? What do you look at?
I don't want to give away my roommate's secrets on this one.
That would like what types of things are like red flags, and what sorts of things are green flags?
So red flags would be like a company increasing its cap a week before its token sale. That's a red flag. Things that things that just basically seem scammy. Like if you're reading a white paper and it sounds like the people don't know what they're talking about, they probably don't.
Do you look at their history? Like, do you look at someone's history, like the creator? Do you go back and look where they went to school, how good they are at UX, like if they're an actual coder?
Not usually that far, actually. So within the Ethereum community, it's so small that you can actually look at most of these guys in the core community have worked on other projects, and you can see how they interacted with people in those projects because it's all public.
What would make a good... Like, I can say that when I choose to invest in things, I like people that are less loud, like that are more just like put their heads down and work. And that's just a personal choice of mine. So that's one thing that like I personally look for is like, are these people just super, super into marketing and being loud and producing these like crazy expensive like marketing videos? If that's the case, I'm usually more reluctant to invest. Whereas some people actually see it as a benefit and are more likely to invest for that same reason because having a strong marketing team and making a bunch of noise is usually, you know,
fake it till you make it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So like real proof of concept is a thing that like doesn't happen a lot with these new ones. It's like, you know, we have this idea. That's where these are stopping. Like, give me money. I have this idea. Give me money.
So are the ICOs, they can be scams essentially.
Oh yeah.
Lots of them
That's what
are.
I'm trying to get him to
Absolutely
say
are.
because he'll this is the thing. I ask him almost all the time. I'm like, hey babe, I just heard of this random sale that's happening in a week. What do you think? And he'll just go scam. Like he'll literally just say scam. Without saying anyone's name.
Brown dog.
What traits, not specific, general, because we're talking about these listeners are going to be looking at this in right now, in a month, in 6 months. What general things are huge red flags?
There's a company that basically controls and will write all of your code for you. You're like, I tell you my idea, and you write my token contract, deal with my pre-sale,
get this in there.
deal with the website. You basically create everything for me. All I've done is tell you what I thought my idea was for this ICO. And then you control everything after that point.
So do they pay them for the idea?
No.
And why are you saying that's a scam?
I pay because I don't know how to build any of this. I literally had an idea to do something. Like, having an idea to do something is not make you a good company. Like, you have to be able, like the proof of concept, you have to be able to build your idea. Copyright and trademarking is like one of the shittiest things in the world because you have people that are like, I have this idea, I'm gonna trademark it, I'm gonna patent it, and now no one else can build it. Like, and so you have all these ideas that literally people are like, can I build this? And they can't. And like they do, and they get sued. Like literally by these companies, and like this is something that like we're kind of protected in here. But
so
like,
to look through, so when you're doing research for trading and you're looking through, what are the signs to noticing that this is someone who's just an idea person and not an actual developer?
So,
what are the signs that someone in the public can just do in their basic research and their basic homework?
So a good active team, usually they'll have a beta going. Like almost always. Like I'm on fucking 5 betas right now because of the fact that they exist, and someone is like, get on this beta, like meet this team. And the thing is, like, all of these teams that like you can interact with, like I can get onto my computer and talk to the people creating this. It's not like, and then when I talk to them, they know what they're talking about. They're like, this is my idea, this is how we're building it, this is our team. It's not like, oh, this is my idea, and then you're like, well, what is that? And they're like, I don't know how it works.
So you can gauge interaction between them like fairly easily.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very on point and like intelligent about what they're doing. Like they'll never, if you ask someone about what their product is and they sound confused, like it's a scam. If you ask someone how they're doing, like how to fix something in their contract, and they don't know how the contract was written, it's a scam. Like
literally, before we even started this podcast, when we first came up with the idea and we were talking to people and talking to them about it, and they'd ask us like, what's your idea? And we're trying to explain it to them, and we don't really know what the hell you're talking about. You know what? That's blatant at that point back then, when I'm able to retrospectively look into myself and say, okay, yeah, if I asked someone at that time, give me $50,000 for my podcast, I'd go, actually, that fucking person talking about myself doesn't know what the hell they're talking about.
That is excellent. And that's the difference, is that you, back then, should not have gotten $50,000 for that idea. It doesn't make it a bad idea. It doesn't make it wrong to pursue that. but it doesn't mean that you should be rewarded for your confused like future like ideas or like hopes or desires. But once you have the podcast, once you've taken the steps, you've figured it out, you've set up the things you need to set up, you have your SoundCloud, okay, then everything comes together, and then you can go ask for money. And that's what I hope moving forward, we'll start to see more of these ICOs and these tokens start raising money a little bit later in the process, where they've worked through the basic like ideation stage, because it's like quite scary.
I mean, and that's from my reading and understanding of everything, is what Ethereum looks to do. It provides a transparency because it's a platform. Everybody's building off their platform.
Right.
But is there anything else like Ethereum where people people are building off a platform like that, or is it just they're just taking, I like this idea that they're using, and I like this idea, and okay, I'm going to make it a cryptocurrency?
I'm pretty sure Ethereum is unique in the sense that it's one of the only ones that was built as a network, not as a like store value transfer. Like money from A to B. It's ETH was the side product. Like the currency was the side product to fuel the network.
Okay.
Like, and it's
personally that's what like back in like 2013, 2014 when Vitalik started like talking about Ethereum and the white paper came out, that's one of the things that really like turned me on, because I was really sick of Bitcoin being referred to as digital gold. Like that's not what I wanted out of like this future thing where anything is possible. And it turns out like the best use case is to hold it forever and then sell it when you're old, I guess, Yeah.
Well, like what mechanism can be put in place that acts like an interest rate? You raise an interest rate, it actually funnels out the bullshit from the bottom. Essentially, is anything like that possible, so that you could funnel out the coins, or are we just gonna let them ride through?
I mean,
I think over time you'll see a total change. Right now it's so new, and there's so many people that are like, and the thing is, and I see this, is that there's a lot of like not well off people that are like, I can develop a little bit, and people are throwing millions and millions of dollars at ideas. Like, I don't have to build that far, and like I could use this money. Like, and that's where I think a lot of the thought stops. But I think further down the road, when you have some of these companies fail and some of them succeed, people will start being more mindful of where they're putting money.
A filter will get created somewhere along the line.
But right now, the value is going up so fast and everything. And the thing is, like, even with these tokens, like, I have buddies that are like throwing, and they're like, "Oh, the value's up." I'm like, "No, it's not. If you had held your ETH, you would have more money right now." Like, literally, like, yes, your USD value is up, but if you had not invested in that ICO, right now you would have more money. Like, your fiat value would be worth more based on just holding on to that ETH.
right.
And there's only like one or two tokens that have not done that. Like, literally, there's in all of like the hundreds of ICOs that have happened, there's only 2 tokens right now that have held their value.
Compared to ETH.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if you had
Not
not
compared
put
to
your
US
ETH
dollars.
into it and held on to your ETH would be worth more right now than 99% of the ICOs.
I'm confused.
Okay, so
You pay for your tokens in ETH.
Yeah.
And you get like 100 tokens for 1 ETH, right? So if you had held on to that 1 ETH till right now, it would still be worth more than this 100 tokens. So like your 1 ETH is worth more than the 100 tokens you bought. There's only 2 tokens that like that 100 tokens is now worth like 2 ETH.
Okay.
So basically, hold on to your ETH.
yeah.
Don't let it go.
Because the thing is that, and this is where it gets really complicated, you buy the tokens in ETH and you compare the ETH to US dollars, but then you look at the increase in value of the tokens compared to US dollars, and it's not appropriate to do so. That's where like the sort of problem comes in, because you're like, man, I've made so much. I'm up 2x compared to US dollars, but ETH is up 3x.
This is what you were saying about the fiat thing, that you're comparing it against fiat. And
Yeah.
when you buy something in not fiat, you should be comparing it against that, not against fiat. And so like this is the shift. And like if you're using like Poloniex, and like they added USD Tether or whenever, but like Poloniex is not used like
Any
everything's
fiat.
against Bitcoin, and now they have an ETH market too, but like initially everything was against Bitcoin. So like I didn't even know what the USD prices of stuff was when I was trading. She'd be like, "Oh my god, it's this," and I'd be like, it's fucking 0.5 Bitcoin." Like,
a friend of ours, when we were it was in that shift between like the 160s and the 200s, and it dipped down. It's like you should be still looking to see if Ethereum is going to be 0.07 Bitcoin in the morning, and not whether it's when you take it to the USD price range or the market, and you see, oh, it's pretty cheap right now, but you're not buying it on there as a USD. You're buying it as Bitcoin on there.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that's why like the ETH to Bitcoin, it's like actually ETH is down to Bitcoin a little bit right now, but it's not like, and Bitcoin's up a lot right now, but so is ETH. So it's like, yes, you're both up, but like buying ETH with Bitcoin doesn't make sense right now.
I think what that's like one of the reasons that it puts people off from trading is because I have other friends who want to get in, and then you even try to explain them, well, you got to get Bitcoin first before you can, and then that is too much for somebody. So
well,
the utility's
Coinbase
hard.
now
Cracking
you can
too
crack.
Has a lot.
There's even Bitcoin vending machines. I mean, I found out there's one right down the street from my house in Florida, like, and it's like there in that neighborhood, in that community, but it's there. They're all over the country.
Those are super cool. Those are also cool. The anarchist side of me knows this. So if you want to like
bring out the anarchist.
Like, with the ATMs, like you can't withdraw a super lot of money, and like they charge you a fee, but like also it's not going in your bank account. It's gonna spit out cash. So like wear a hoodie and go get your cash, and hey, like it never touches your bank account. That's a really, really positive thing. With Coinbase though, Coinbase now you can buy ETH, so that makes it way easier.
So
go ahead.
It's you, sir. It's all
No.
you. No. I'm gonna start asking about virtual reality. So.
I was about to make a comment. You have a question. Questions precede comments.
My stuff was virtual reality. Like this just seems, when we start getting into more advanced technology and the VR space, like you're going to need to integrate this anyway. Like there are other parallel technologies coming out that it seems like this technology will get integrated. And what do you feel about that? Do you think that something like VR is going to, right now VR, I would say, is putting in ad space. They're working on putting in ads. Like someone was telling me that he works for yesterday we were being told that his girlfriend works for a VR company that puts ad space, like for Doritos is putting ads on billboards in a racing game in VR. You know what I mean? And so when you think about that, when you think about purchases through VR, buying Sims pieces for your
bedroom, your virtual bedroom.
Yes, exactly. So when you're building that, and you're gonna need to pay for things, like this is the time for a technology like that to figure out their integration structure for bringing in monetary instruments. And so I would guess that this is like a crossroads where they would decide, like, okay, do we use this technology or do we use a standard way of doing things, and it gets built into the system. So it might be out there, but do you know if anything like that is being built into some of these programs or structures?
I know. So there's the First Blood is something it's like pushing my limits.
Well, I know what company I'm starting.
First Blood is I think they're more like esports though, but it's that same sort of realm.
Gaming especially would seem like the biggest, like,
oh my god, yeah. And see, that's the thing, is I'm not a gamer, so like I don't like follow these as much, but like yes. The other thing is that going back to like sort of the rewarding the content creators, it's the same thing with these VRs. It's like, okay, you have this company who's producing now it's even more complicated. So you have the company that's producing the hardware and then the games for it, and then you have the users, and then you have like this distribution models. And
I wonder if they'll let me bet through there, like, oh, I'm playing you in virtual
the
FIFA
US
$10
government
each.
is not gonna let you.
Yeah, I know.
That's the problem. Is like, but yeah. So when we're talking about rewarding content creators, though, it's like it would make so much more sense if you could buy the game from them, and then instead of putting ads in, they just they just get rewarded instead of like having to, the whole. It's with everything, with movies, with everything.
You could pay to use it every time you use the game. I could instead of owning the game, I could pay like a micropenny to use the game, and every time I do, they charge me to play.
Well,
right.
Also, you could cut out a ton of like the overhead for these companies and things. So like instead of paying $50 for a game, like a cent for a game would be fine, because like if you could pay the dude that created the video game a cent, and like everyone that bought Call of Duty paid the dude that created Call of Duty 1 cent, like dude would have billions of dollars. He'd be straight on that. But like it costs $50 because he's got this company and a team and then like all of the all
marketing,
of the other stuff.
So this could break down corporations.
I mean,
Hopefully.
like, and I don't, I mean, let's not be like, tomorrow we're going to wake up and there's not going to be like any more studios and any more like corporations. But what it will do is like, the structure where like the top dogs are so far up here and they controlled so much, right? We'll start seeing the flow and the distribution move towards the bottom, towards the content creators, towards the people that have the talents, not the people that have like the talents in managing the people that have the talents in you know what I mean? Like it's so
the same thing's happening with like some of the weed coins that are coming out, the pot coin or the other one, because
that one makes me laugh so hard because I get emails from that one every week about how the pot stocks are soaring, and then I'm like, well, I'm getting this.
Wait, no, sorry.
It's pot
coin.
coin.
What is pot coin?
So I think it's sort of like beer coin, and the idea behind it was that you can like buy your weed with pot coins.
I think it was trying to take away the service of a lot of these states that have to put their money somewhere.
Right.
They can't do it because all these banking institutions are federal institutions. They can't put the money in.
That's a good idea.
No, it was
that
awesome.
actually is a great service that it's taken the place of.
But it never is moving, and I get these emails saying it's going up every week. And
it's like $2 or $4.
Difference. I love my husband to death, but this is the difference between us. Like me, I'm like, that sounds like a great idea. He's like, yeah, but the price hasn't moved. And I'm like, right, but like, maybe someone should like, I don't know, look into seeing if it could do something better so that the price could move for you. Like, I don't know.
If it was implemented as more than an idea, which is like what we were talking about with.
Like, okay, so it just hasn't come to fruition yet.
Yeah, no one's using it. Like at the point that someone uses
if
it.
the entire, let's say, state of Colorado or Washington actually incorporated this and said, listen, we're really going to be, that states' rights, blah, 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 up yours, U.S. government. We're just going to do it this way. And we have a place to put our money now, because now you are literally telling us that we cannot secure our money.
Right.
We have to have guns, trucks, everything to make sure that we can store this somewhere, this paper that doesn't count for anything.
Yeah. Well, we had that problem, like literally, like right here, maybe 6-7 years ago. I think there was. I mean,
one
if you
bank
had
would give you. So Wells Fargo, when it existed out here.
Thefts, like basically every single. You talk about it. You know more than I do.
So the thing out here that was the biggest problem for like the dispensaries that wanted to pay taxes was that they couldn't get a bank account. So there was one bank that did it, and then they like started like freezing people's accounts and stuff. And then in 2008 they decided to start sending letters out to all of the dispensaries that weren't paying their taxes, and were like, you have to shut down or pay like exorbitant amounts of money. Which no one did because they couldn't. Like literally, what are they gonna do? Walk into the IRS with like a backpack full of cash?
And so that's the thing. So what does Potcoin need to make it what's
people?
Well,
just need to
Potcoin,
use it.
from my understanding of it, it solves the banking problem,
right?
but it also will literally fail if the banking problem gets solved in the United States. Like if we allow the banking to,
if it
legalizes, then that coin will fail completely. But if it doesn't, then it's an incredible coin. So it rides on that contingent issue.
It's not that elaborate of a coin. It covers a service for now, but in the future, like I said, if it becomes legalized, then it becomes obsolete.
Yeah, so I mean that's like a great point about when we're talking about whether or not you should buy X coin is, talking about risks. Like a risk with Potcoin is, this like a single solitary decision that somebody could make somewhere would basically defeat the purpose of this coin. And so you have to like take into the considerations those risks. Like what's the potential that the bank start accepting it? What's the potential of it being legalized? I would say that's like there's probably a pretty high risk in that.
So you're saying there's just so many unknown factors that go into so many external unknown factors that go into these coins that yeah, when you're looking to trade the coin, you can look at, is the utility good? Is the creator good? Does the code work? Are the people who are investing in it worth it? But, you know, then you also need to look at what are the future potential options of this coin? Like, what could go wrong? What could hinder this? What is the litigation behind it? So there's still a lot that needs to be understood, and so that's why it's still speculative. But it doesn't, you know, I'll bring it back to the reoccurring theme. It doesn't change like how the potential of the market exists. And so to me, that's why Ethereum is still the home run, because that I don't see not needing. Like, that technology is what is needed.
So I'm pretty sure that there's no other outlet that has the potential of growth that crypto does right now. But there's no not risky crypto investment. And that means your time, your money, anything that you, like, basically these blockchains, like, at any point, like, what happens if they just start failing? Like, they go down, like, they just stop working. Like, the hash rate of Bitcoin gets so bad that the miners are like, this is stupid, turn off their computers, right? Now you don't have a running blockchain.
So what's the risk of that happening with, say, Bitcoin? Not
very high. It's like, that's such a strong...
So it's like a pyramid where at the top it's harder for a chance for that to happen, and at the bottom it's
and the longer and the more foothold it gets in, and the more valuable it becomes, the harder it is to get rid of, essentially.
Yeah, and this is like one of the reasons so many people are putting the tokens on Ethereum is because like Potcoin, for example, is its own chain, right? So if they don't have enough miners and they don't have enough people using it and they don't have enough activity, it, like, the security of the network itself goes down.
So the less users, the less secure miners,
yeah.
the less that the system works. So it's contingent also on that it's still functioning robustly.
Yeah.
Miners are like the fundamental necessity of the blockchains, and some people realize this, but like not everyone does, and like people don't realize that like the gas fees are actually paying these miners.
Isn't that why? Is that what Vitaly's? My listeners might not understand this, but isn't that why Vitaly's working so hard on reducing gas prices so that keeps that possibility low? I don't know if I made that up in my head.
Ethereum will switch to proof of stake in, I don't know, a year,
proof of stake
November.
Can you explain proof of stake? Here we go.
All right, another rabbit hole, guys. Okay, so mining is called proof of work, and basically the way that you ensure the security of the network, the way that everyone's doing their job, and the reason you can't go back in time and have somebody or a group of people say that, oh, this transaction didn't happen, like, let's just like delete this transaction,
like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the reason all of that can't be done is because these very powerful computers and computations are the thing that the miners, like, when you talk about mining, like, they're running these like very hard mathematical equations, and they're proving that they worked hard, and that has a cost. And then if they work hard and they build the blocks in the way that the network needs.
The electrical cost, the electricity, like the cost to run electricity in your house.
Right, electricity and the the hardware itself, like these really complex computer chips and managing it, all that. So that's the cost. And then if they do everything correctly and they keep the network running in a way that is good, then they are rewarded. Like, they get the transaction fees, and that's
the proof of work.
That's proof of work. Okay. So the problems with proof of work is, like, I don't know, having like everyone mining with so much electricity in order to like secure this network, like, is actually costly on like a global economic scale and like environmental scale.
Okay.
So it's fine, like, if you have like a little coin, you have like a few people mining it, you're like, okay, well, my electric bill's up $10. But if you have like,
so sustainability of scale is a major issue.
China, like, literally like pollute.
Yeah.
Like the globe.
There's like, like, when I say that there's like server farms, like, you'll have to go and like Google like a
warehouse with walls of like racks of computers and GPUs.
There's a story, you would know about this better than I would, about in Venezuela, about because energy is free down there.
Oh,
A lot of
yeah.
people are mining bitcoins.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're mining the bit. So you guys are familiar with the story.
Yeah.
They're mining. It's created this microeconomy of Bitcoin for our listeners, where people in Venezuela, the electricity is free, and so since it's government-sponsored electricity, they're able to go in and mine Bitcoin and use this Bitcoin to, they can't get their food because the fiat, the dollar, their price fight is.
The bigger problem, I think, is in Venezuela, they're the ones that the inflation rate is through the roof, right, of their fiat currency.
Yeah, well, that's the big problem. So that's why they're willing to do this and mine for the Bitcoin.
Right.
But what's even cooler, and I say cool, is because they are mining Bitcoin. People know that they have to get that they have to trade this. The only way they can do this is they have to trade. So the trade on the other end is not what the market price is. It's like 4x what the market price is.
Oh.
So they're getting these horrible market. So it's created this.
So they're just like inflated everywhere.
So the buyer side is actually, if you can be a buyer on the buy side, you're killing it. You're making a ton of money by trading with these people who are literally mining for Bitcoin for $80 a month so that they can, have money to food. And then another way around it, what they're doing is they're taking the Bitcoin money and they're ordering Amazon. They're having it shipped to Miami. And then in Miami, they have these parcel services that are delivering the food to Venezuela so that people can get their food, because it's like a pre-set up service. So I don't know.
You don't have to do international. It's pretty epic.
It's pretty crazy.
This
So me
is
and him were
like
talking
when
about
I
going down there and
talk-
hand doing it. and
that's
hand
amazing.
arbitrage.
That's why
Wow.
I've actually been. Arbitrage is such a fun idea, but with the block times, it's like not a feasible thing.
Wait, I'm not good with this.
I mean, at
Venezuela
4x
thing,
price,
though.
I'll go
This
down
is
there. I might get killed in the
insane.
streets. I mean, it seems like a
This is
high
like
probability.
crypto
Listen,
world
just kidding. We're
problems,
just kidding.
though. Like,
India also had the same setup that they were basically trading Bitcoin like 2 to 4x what it's worth, and that's actually what made the price go up to like $1,500, whatever. That initial jump was because one exchange in India implemented Bitcoin, which enabled all of India to use this exchange in Bitcoin, and it filled up the blockchain. So they went from like whatever an hour and a half to like 4 hours for confirmations.
but
and the
you're like
prices.
so far over people's head right now. Like, you're over my head.
But like basically like they also have like a micro economy based on Bitcoin because of the fact that they adopted it, and only like you can use it if you can use it. So it's actually like it has a different, and it's hard for me. Like I was like, I can arbitrage, I can stick Bitcoin in this Indian exchange, and I can't. It's hard. Like it's hard to get like. So basically they have like.
What does it all mean?
How does it affect the system? Yeah,
Like, what does it all
you asked
mean?
the hard
Like-
questions over there.
So
All
it's
right.
like taking away like these. It's giving people like in these countries, like third world countries that like are just straight like. I mean, like India has like really bad like abilities to like people's ability to get food and like stuff. Like Venezuela is similar in the sense.
Well, they did that
like
with their
now
currency recently. They just took out the 500 and 1,000 rupee bill, and they said you have to exchange these in the banks. You have until a certain day or time, but no one can ever use
So
it
this
again.
is that sort of like kind of what stemmed the demand for Bitcoin? Was that are
This-
they related, or
When they made that initial jump to 1,500, that was a little much longer a while ago. This happened a little recently, maybe 5 to 6 months ago,
okay?
when they recently did this. But again, I'm sure it only stimulated that little micro economy that did exist.
God.
So basically, it's like there's in countries that we don't see this because we're a first world country. People have money around us. Like
Right.
when you go to these countries that people don't like, you're literally like they're actually hurting like and like separating the like problems between like the government ruining people's lives like. So like.
So does Bitcoin solve that?
It is solving that for all these people, and that's why these like 8-hour block times don't bother them at all. Like, they
Yeah,
bother
so I mean,
us.
when you think about it full circle, so looking at the thing full circle, that has already utility in some places, that same utility causes us problems in other places, and it's just I mean, we've been exploring all these different topics and how it affects the price and how it affects the market and the way people view it and the way they experience the entire, bit of the currency, which is cool that we're exploring like all those elements of what this thing is that probably people don't ever get to really look at it from all those different angles. And when you take it back to electricity and sustainability, it's a great question that I'm curious, like, that brings us back to the core element, the miners that you guys were talking about is electricity.
Oh, yeah, that's where we started.
Yeah, that's where the rabbit. You said we were going to go down a rabbit hole. It was it was one of those prairie dog holes, but still.
Yeah.
Full circle.
Okay, so anyways, because like electricity and like the environment and stuff like has a cost, right? Even if like you're a person in Venezuela and the electricity is free, like the government's paying for it. Like somebody or the environment is paying for it, whatever. So Ethereum is currently proof of work, meaning that you have the miners and they're mining and they're using the electricity and stuff. But they will switch to what's known as proof of stake. And proof of stake is a whole different way of basically like forcing or incentivizing people to build the blockchain, to verify the transactions, to not like go back in time and like destroy the blockchain. But instead of using like electricity, it's actually like it's called staking. And so instead of like having a computer somewhere running these really complex math problems, you basically stake like your hold, like, you know, like old school staking, like you set up your stake.
Like going to the moon.
It's the same thing.
This
like
is America's.
Yeah. And so I don't know what the exact details are with Ethereum, but basically like you essentially like you'll lock up some of your ETH for a given amount of time. And like, yeah, I don't know. People have to Google it.
Okay.
Doesn't it also
It's like-
mean that like at that point when they swap to proof of stake, they're going to be a set number of ETH in existence?
No, because Vitalik will and Vlad as well. I think they like a little bit of inflation is a good thing. A lot of inflation is bad, but a little bit of inflation.
The biggest
is
I'm
good.
just wondering how they're going to do it.
The biggest take
do you
I get
mean?
from out of what you just said is that it's an unfinished product that people are working to complete. Like they recognize this isn't just a get money scheme. This is if you're going to try to build a system which core is functioning for decentralization, for economic and maximum efficiency. If you're building an idea that's for efficiency, then you can't leave anything out. You have to make sure that, okay, just because the system functions at its core, we need it to function in the external world just as efficiently and just as well. Like it must function at all levels. Otherwise, then great, that might be a more efficient system of what we have today, but this one's pollution, whatever, there's no pollution costs. Nobody pays for any pollution. Someone's paying for that. The ozone's broken over Africa. They're paying for that. You know, so just like the Venezuelan government is paying for you guys and us to make our Ethereum and Bitcoin, someone's paying for it. So if you can reduce that to the proper core function, and I love that they're doing it this soon. Like they're already recognizing that this is where it needs to happen. And so I'm, after this conversation, just even more enamored with the concept.
I mean, it's a total swap from like, you know, like people that like you. I lost my thought.
Yeah, it happens all
I
the time.
had a question.
There's
Is
so
there a
much.
limit to how much Ethereum was made? Because there's 21 million Bitcoin.
Right. So, and
That's what we
you
were doing.
gotta love that 21 million number. So with Ethereum, currently the like rate of inflation, or you know how much Ethereum is created per block, is more variable than like Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin, it's like a fixed thing. So just like you have a fixed block size, everything is fixed, everything's hard coded. With Ethereum, everything is more dynamic. Also, so one of the key differences with Ethereum is that with Bitcoin, you have the block reward, which is just if you mine a block, you get that reward. With Ethereum, you have this concept of uncles, which is like a really silly thing, but basically, even if you're like second place for mining the block, so you find the solution to this hard math problem, but you're not the first, but you still find it, you're rewarded too. So it actually distributes like things a little bit more, and it incentivizes people
More
a little bit
incentive,
more. And it decentralizes everything a little bit more. But beyond that, what it does is like sometimes there isn't a second place. And so it's hard to say like exactly what you can do all the math and you can say what the creation rate or whatever, how many ETH are being created a block, but it's an average over time. With proof of stake, that number is going to decrease. And I don't know if they've settled on like a final number yet, but I know that most people that I've spoken to would like it to be a low number but not zero, meaning there's not a final 21 million number. And the reason for that is that it's actually like the reason that you have inflation, like inflation in itself is not bad. Inflation of 1,000% is bad, but small amounts of inflation are good, because if you don't have it, like, it incentivizes people to spend the money, to distribute the wealth, to build things and grow things and whatever. And then it also helps, like, there's, especially with these cryptocurrencies, if you send to an address that doesn't exist, like that doesn't have a private key, like, it's lost forever. Or if you lose your private key, it's lost forever. So having like Bitcoin, if you're looking to like invest in something that, you know, is literally like the best thing you can do with Bitcoin is hold it and not spend it and not pay a transaction fee. And that's like kind of crazy to think about, but with that fixed number, that's, you know, with Ethereum, that number is like low enough that it's not going to cause the normal problems when you think about inflation. But it also, like, you know, tying back to Ethereum isn't supposed to be like a store of value in a coin in the same sense that Bitcoin is. It's supposed to be the fuel that runs the network, you know. So they're just like very different. And this is like all the Ethereums are like, that's why I love Ethereum, you know. Like, I don't want gold, I want really awesome applications.
So I'm going to, unless you have any questions, I'm going to take this a little different route and ask some questions about why you guys started MyEtherWallet. What led you into that?
So when Ethereum first started, there was only like the command line, which means that you had to like open up terminal, and it's like little black hacker box, and you like type in things, and that's how you would like send your ETH around. So like, in order for me to send you ETH, or me to send myself ETH to like a new account, you literally have to type like send transaction, parentheses, your first address, comma, the amount of gas that you're sending, comma, the amount of ETH, but it's not ETH. So if you want to send one ETH, it's like this big long number, right? And I took one look at that and I was like, no freaking way am I ever sending any money after I just typed something in that's not even like English at all. Like, it's not clear. So my partner, who's Kosala, he is a super smart, brilliant computer guy, and he was like, okay, well, you know, you can. I was like, I'm not doing this, and he's like, okay, and I was like, will you build me like a button or like a box that'll do it for me? Like, I can type in how, like, where I want to send it, and, you know, whatever. And he was like, okay, sure. And so he built that so that I could create a new wallet and then send my ETH from my first wallet into like my new wallet. And then we shared it with people, and then people used it. And then, like, now we're here.
No, it's like that's kind of the way the best products are created. They solve a problem, and then you help a few people, and they're like, oh shit, yeah, it solves everyone's problem for that.
Yeah, so, we never expected to be here. Like, I don't know what I expected. I didn't expect to be here for sure, though. It's kind of mind blowing, but it's super fun, and it's challenging, and it's like an adventure, and it's really, really fun.
How long have you guys been around?
So it'll be, what is it, June now? So like in 2 months, it'll be exactly 2 years. It's like the end of July, beginning of August.
And you guys are the biggest player in the ETH wallet space.
Apparently, I guess, yeah. I don't. So there's
some that are trying.
Yeah, there's
some that are functionally they work as easily and as functionally as much of the time.
Yeah, so the wallet and just like to back up so people can understand this. Your ETH is on the blockchain. Your wallet is what you use to like access that ETH and send it and spend it and see it and all of that kind of stuff. So we are a wallet, meaning that we provide an interface for you to do whatever you want with the blockchain. Otherwise, you're like looking at code and you don't want to do that.
So it allows a Joe Schmo to make a transaction or to hold their money in for
you can generate a new wallet, you can see your balance, you can send your ETH or your tokens. What else do we have? Oh, so the ENS is the new thing. So the ENS is like the name service, so you can actually, instead of typing in the like 32 or whatever 40 character addresses, the OX756EB, like that big long string, you can register a name, you can buy a name like Taylor, right? And that will then, just like a URL is, you can send your money there.
And it's awesome. This is how I actually find my address now on Etherscan. I just look up my name. Like, and it pulls my
So you can do that on our site too. So you can go buy you can buy a name that'll be linked to your address.
Do you see there's like this bubble online where you can see who the biggest owners are of different ETH? Is that through your guys' wallet, or is that just something that's
Is that not Etherscan?
That's probably Etherscan. That's Matt at Etherscan. He's the creator of that site. That's like the sort of the blockchain.info for Ethereum. So you can see the blockchain, you can see basically everything.
Only company that did their fundraising the right way.
Yeah, they didn't do a token sale. They worked their asses off and did
VC, right?
They did an incubator through Boost VC, I think. Yeah.
Do you guys have any plans for scale? You guys company, do you guys have plans for scale?
Working on
You know, but obviously we talked about earlier about the customer service exponential growth.
Our current situation is like the scaling is just like more like spending more hours on it a day, which means like even less sleep. So basically our plan is okay, so we hired four new developers. I've got myself I don't even know, his name's Jordan. He's freaking awesome and has saved my butt already. He's like helping out with support, but he's like, I think he's gonna basically be like our CMO. Even though we're like not, I feel like we're
This
not
is
even
your
real.
offer?
No, I'm just saying, like, he's just a jack of all trades, and he's gonna basically be the one that helps out with all that. And then we're gonna get a support team, and then the infrastructure side of things, actually, we scaled up last year, so that was cool. Like, we don't have to deal with that. Basically, we have like the same sort of systems as that Netflix does, so like people can sign all they want, and we don't go down. And then for monetization, if you're on our site, you can swap between like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and we get a small cut of that. That's through Biddy right now. We're gonna set up probably like an onboarding buy widget with Coinbase coming soon, and we'll get an affiliate fee with that. We might do a subdomain system that could be super cool and make it even easier to buy and register like a name. That would be like basically through us, because right now the ENS is like this auction system, which is really, really cool, and like we could spend a whole episode on the ENS. It takes a couple days, and like I think that people probably just want to buy a name, so we could offer that.
I think that this technology and you guys' wallet is incredible. And do you have any further questions or anything? And do you guys have anything else you wanted to talk about specifically?
Dude, I have no idea anymore.
No, that's what we're saving them so we can bring them back on again.
Yeah,
That's why we capped it
This
there. We've capped it.
the
We've
first
spent too
half
much on
of the
Coinbase.
show.
Now we have to wait a week, and then
And
we
then
have
we
them
can
back
keep
on.
going.
And then
Every all-time high.
We should do another one on the ENS though, because that is like a whole. The ENS is the Ethereum name service, and it's basically like the DNS, which means that like the entire reason you can type in google.com and end up on Google is the DNS. We're gonna do the same thing with Ethereum with the ENS.
Incredible.
Really cool. So I go into like Etherscan.
No, that's it.
Or
I'm done.
My wallet, and I type in my last name, and then I literally can open my wallet from my last name. And I used to look up my address in weird ways because I like knew sort of what my address was, but now I can literally just look up my last name and it's like, oh, this name is attached to this address. I'm like, okay, I just send money to that address. Like, cool.
Yeah.
That's like the trade. It's like you have this divide between the different types of technology and for trading and then for utility, for usage, for livelihood.
And that's the speculative versus real value.
Yeah, you need you do once if it's going to be a currency, then you need the market value of the coin, and you, in order for that to keep having value, you need the utility behind it. So it's just knowing that both are working at the same time, that there are people developing both.
It's harder than you would think. Yeah, you're right.
It makes me excited. Look, I'm glad I'm not coding any of this. I'm glad I didn't learn how to code, because then I know that I'd be knuckle deep on my computer every single day trying to figure out some new way to take over the world and
to solve more equations so I can get more ETH coming back to me.
Yeah, I would be obsessed with algorithms if you gave me the opportunity, so I'm glad I don't know.
Like, just building a miner, like, you can get so deep into, like, the hardware. Like, that's before you even plug it in and set it up to mine for you.
It's funny because my friend approached me, my business partner I was 23 or 24 at the time, my business partner. He's like, let's quit our company. This is like 4 months into our company. He's like, let's quit our company. We'll kick everyone out and let's use this space. And we got super lucky to have this huge space. We're like, use this space and let's start a Bitcoin mining operation. He's like, let's do that. He told me that. This is literally, I'm 23 years old.
You would not be here right now.
I would not be here right now. Like, completely worst mistake ever not doing that. But we thought at the time, our conversation ended up, I think, in the realm of saying, it's too late. Like, it's too late to be miners. And it turns out it wasn't too late to be miners.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing. Because this is another question that people ask me all the time. Is it too late to invest in Ethereum? Is it too late to do this? Is it too late to do this? Like, no. Like, we're talking about, like, if you go look back at this period of time we're in right now.
Beeper stage.
We are, like, pre-beeper stage. We're trying to build the beepers. So, it's basically, like, just do it. Whatever skills you have. Whatever skills you have, whatever your passion is, like, there's something in this space that, like, needs your insights or your feedback on or your skills or whatever. And I'm so serious about this. Like, every one of these projects gets better with a more diverse audience, with a more diverse user base. And, like, I'm talking about, like, when we talk about diversity, like, everyone is needed.
Yeah, I mean, not that you can't, but just having the smartest, intelligent people working on this, they're going to view it from their perspective. How would I want this to function? And in reality, that sends a lot of companies and crushes them because they don't know what the average person wants. They don't know what the regular Joe Schmo wants. So the more people we get acclimated to it, the better it's going to be.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's when we talk about India and stuff, like, I'm sitting here like, oh, maybe I should, like, would people in India be able to access our site? Like, I don't know. That's probably a bad, like, thing.
That's something to think about. That's MyEtherWallet goes to India round 2.
Let's go.
Now that it's a thing. India, Korea, and Japan.
All right, that's the title of the show. MyEtherWallet goes to India. That'll be the next show.
Episode 2.
Do you guys want to plug yourself? That's a complete. You can say no on that if you'd like.
Where people can find you.
You can say Twitter.
Whether it's personal,
your company
email.
at the very least.
So I would say just go to MyEtherWallet.com. In the footer, there's like a whole bunch of links. We got the links to Twitter and Facebook and Slack, and there's an email address for me. If you want to just like email me and give me like a shout out, that's Taylor@MyEtherWallet.com. If you need help though, don't email that one because she won't help you. The support at MyEtherWallet.com. We now have 3 people like answering that inbox, so it's better. I'm one of those people, but
hell of a support team.
It's a hell of a support team.
It's growing. We're trying. He's one of them.
It's not good. It's not good.
It's been a crazy ride, but we'll get there.
Email me at Daniel@MyEtherWallet.com. I'll be the new support member.
You have existential conversations.
It was a trial to see if we can be on the support team. Did we
Yeah.
pass? Are we in?
Anyone
If
is
you guys
in at
want
this point.
to answer support emails.
Figured.
Guys,
We're not picky at all.
If that's something you want to do, anyone answering emails is better than me. Like that's.
thank you guys so much for
Thank
taking
you so
time your
much
Saturday,
Yeah.
being the first people to come on the show on the road with us. It was great.
Oh, that's what this one is called. You guys
you
go
guys
to LA.
Yeah.
Not MyEtherWallet goes to India. This is your road trip.
We're from Miami.
Cool.
Yeah, we're doing a few episodes out here, but thank you guys again. We're tuning out. Cheers. Have a great rest of your day.
Later.
Thank you.
Taylor, Kevin, thank you so much for coming out on the show. Guys, remember, if you want to learn more about cryptocurrency, you want to learn about Ethereum and ways to trade and buy things on the Ethereum network, you want to head over to MyEtherWallet, and a place to get cryptos, from Bitcoin to Litecoin to Ethereum. You can do that on Coinbase.com. Again, those are all notes you're going to find, things you're going to find in the show notes on our episode. Make sure if you like this episode, you're hitting that subscribe button. If you're already subscribed and you want more people to know about this amazing episode or this amazing show in its entirety, make sure you're hitting that share button. Make sure you're sharing that link with friends, family, loved ones, people you love, people you hate, people you think that are going to benefit from this amazing plethora of information that we went over on this episode. Now, huge shout out to Green Roads World. Make sure you head over to greenroadsworld.com. Promo code on the bus, lowercase, one word, and you're getting yourself a 15% discount. Make sure you're shopping through the Amazon portal once again at onthebuspodcast.com. You're going to find out all the other delicious goodies and treats in our store at onthebuspodcast.com, and where you can find those things and where you can benefit and save on them. Guys, huge thanks. Episode 40. We keep moving. We keep chugging along. Thank you so much. Have a great one.
For those who